Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Nikki. I make videos about studying, journaling, and occasionally I will also upload other content. So if you're interested in that and you do like K-pop, I would highly recommend you would subscribe to our channel to see a video of me every week. Today I am going to be talking about note-taking, everyone's favorite topic. I know, right? I also asked you guys on Instagram what video you want to see, so thank you so much for everyone who voted. As always, everything that I'm going to be showing you during my B-rolls, in case you are wondering on how I take my notes, it is going to be linked down below. I would very much appreciate it if you would use my affiliate link at no more costs for you. You don't have to, of course. So before we dive into the video, I just quickly wanted to give you guys some background information about myself so you kind of understand my note-taking techniques. If you are already a long-time viewer of mine, you probably know everything that I'm about to say. So here's the timestamps. Please skip to this part of the video so you'll save yourself some time. For everyone who's new here, hi! I am a 20-year-old student majoring in business administration with specialization in finance, statistics, and accounting. I am studying in Germany. That means the system that we have here is quite different from basically a lot of other countries. With what I mean by that, we basically have free education system. I know, shocking. For my university, it is a public university. I don't pay a lot of tuition. I barely pay anything, to be honest. That is exactly what I get. Nothing. And since you still have to pay tuition, your professors will teach you a lot more and they will put a lot more effort into the lecture. At least that's how I felt when I was studying abroad in Korea and the people had to pay tuition there. At least for my major and for the specializations that I'm taking, there's only one exam. And that is the final exam, and that exam determines my whole grade. So whatever I get in this exam is my final grade of the class. There's no assignments, no homeworks, we don't have attendance, whatever. I have to basically study everything by myself, which means my note-taking techniques might be maybe a little bit too excessive for some of you guys. If you have like a good professor or the professor puts effort into your lecture, then half of it is already done. You don't need to take as many notes as I do, but that is totally fine. I'm not complaining. In fact, I am very happy that I have a free education system. I'm sorry to everyone who doesn't. Please adjust your note-taking style and take some inspiration from my tips. Maybe that will help you. I hope so. That's why I'm doing this video. So there's 3 steps of note-taking for myself. First step is to go to the lecture and take notes there. Second step is to write a summary. And the third step, I don't need to do that, but sometimes I do if I have a lot of time and energy. And that is just go to the tutorial, take notes there, and revise your summary. So let's start with lecture notes. If you are already a higher year student, you don't really need to hear this because you probably already developed your own liking if you use paper or your computer. But if you're just about to enroll to university and you don't really know, come to the lecture prepared with the lecture slides. These are basically the basis of the lecture, and this is where I usually like to take my notes. But I know people who don't have access to a printer or people who don't have an iPad to download their lecture slides on them. You might want to take a notebook. You can also take your laptop with you, but I would personally recommend if you have subjects such as maths, calculus, or you know, just subjects that involve a lot of formulas and numbers, you might want to use a notebook because it's going to be a lot easier than to like try to type the formula into your laptop, unless you're studying something with IT. For subjects that involve a lot of talking, discussion, reading, it is fine to use your laptop. I wouldn't bother to write everything down because it's easier to type. So with that being said, let's move on how I take notes in lecture. I can basically sum up the types of lectures that I had in 3 categories. So the first category of lecture is when the professor talks a lot, just basically drifting away from the topic, or he's just reading off his slides, or he rarely explains anything and it is kind of unnecessary to go to these lectures. I oftentimes skip those lectures because, as I said before, we don't have attendance, so I can easily do that. But sometimes I will go to feel less ashamed about myself for skipping a lecture, but usually I don't pay attention in these. I had some of those lectures during my first year, I believe. I skipped a lot of them and I still got an A+. With that being said, use your time efficiently. Don't go to these lectures if you're not gonna study. I don't take notes in those kind of lectures because I rarely just go to them because already the slides are enough or there's a textbook that explains everything and it's just unnecessary, to be honest. But if you do have to attend the lecture because your university uses the attendance system, yeah, then go. Pay attention to, because I know usually the professor will like pick random students and you don't want to be there get picked and you don't even know what the hell is going on. I did that once when I was studying abroad. That was not fun. I do sound like a very bad student though, but I'm just saying, use your time efficiently. For the second type of lecture, these are the kind of lectures where the professor talks a lot, explains a lot, very fast, so that there's like no way to keep up with everything that the professor is saying. Sadly, a lot of lectures in my university are like that. Focus more on listening rather than note-taking, because if you listen, you already get kind of like an idea of the topic, and even if you don't get it, it's totally fine. At least you try to like follow up, because if you don't listen and you don't understand anything, you're gonna be getting scared of the topic. At least that's how it is for me all the time. And then I kind of like procrastinate on writing my summary. We don't like procrastination in this house. If you do have a lecture like that where you do have a textbook to follow up, or where the lecture is kind of like based off a textbook, well, that is very great because you don't have to take a lot of notes during this lecture. For me, these were subjects such as economics, econometrics, microeconomics, those kind of subjects where I can just easily find the concept in my textbook or in the internet, or some random Indian guy explains it on YouTube. My point is to say that don't write down the definitions that the professor is saying, because you can easily look them up, but rather write down the things that the professor is explaining. When someone is writing down on something on the board, if he is explaining a lot while writing it down, don't focus on copying the board, focus on taking notes of what he is explaining. That is very, very crucial. I see a lot of people don't do this, and I don't get why. I also see a lot of people, when they don't have the lecture slides, just copy the lecture slides onto their notebooks, and I honestly don't see the point in this, because why are you even here? So my point is, focus on explanation. Most of the time you kind of know what is a definition, or what is like something you can look up on the internet, and what is something that the professor is saying in his own words. You can kind of see how he is like talking, and then you will, I don't know. It is not hard if you pay attention to those kind of things. If you don't have a textbook for a very fast lecture, honestly, the best way around this is just to record the lecture. I know this is not a lot, but honestly, you gotta do what you gotta do, because I had some of those kind of lectures as well where it was just not possible to follow up. The textbook that we had did not really explain anything. I guess this is not really important for most of the people. Up to the third type of lecture, which are basically the good lectures, how I want to call them. Write down the important parts, and most of the time the professor will tell you what is important, or these are just the type of lectures where your slides explain everything, so you basically don't have to take a lot of notes and just go to the lecture to listen. If you do have a lot of lectures like that, that is great for you, honestly. I envy you a lot. So to like put everything together that I just said, I mainly use the lecture for get like a first impression of what is going on. Use your lecture as note-taking, but don't take too much notes. That's what I'm trying to say. So now on to my second step, which is the actual note taking, I would say, and that is writing down a summary. As I said before, my summaries are very, very important to me. That is why I give a lot of effort to them. Before writing down a summary, actually, it is so much more important to understand the topic. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't get, or I don't know what they do, because you know, most of the things that are happening here. They're not happening on your pen, they're not happening on your paper, they're not happening on your hand gliding over your paper, writing down your notes. No, everything is happening here. You should start here and not with your summary. And trust me, your summary will be so much more helpful. So there's two types of summaries that you can do, either handwritten or on your laptop digitally. So for the handwritten summaries, these are probably my favorite ones because they look very aesthetic, and I like to, you know, color coordinate my notes, and I'm very crazy about my notes. And a lot of people who know me in real life, they're always like, oh my god, Nikki, why are you giving so much effort into your notes? That is just honestly just my personal preference, because I like to, you know, put effort into my notes. But you don't have to do that. For subjects that involve a lot of numbers, maths, or formulas, I would recommend using your handwritten summary. A handwritten summary takes a longer time than a digital one, so please keep it short. And what I like to do is visualize your notes. Use graphs, use formulas, use tables rather than text as much as possible. I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory. I hope nobody does explain the graph rather than drawing it. You know, use different colors, highlighter, whatever. This just really depends on your personal liking. You don't have to be as crazy as I am. And then for my digital notes, I usually take digital notes when I have subjects that involve a lot of reading, discussion, or, you know, just talking. Subjects such as management or marketing. I have to be careful with that because I tend to write down a lot. I'm gonna be honest, I struggle a lot with like shortening stuff. Don't copy everything. Use short bullet points rather than long ones, but rather stack them up. At least that's how I feel like it is for me. I can remember things a lot better when there are short bullet points. And also digital summaries, don't underestimate them. I used to underestimate them when I first started university. I guess like it is easier to remember things from your own handwriting than seeing something digitally, but I used to write down all my summaries in my first semester with my hand. And I'm not kidding when I say I used up a whole ink every week. A whole ink. I did that. These were probably the hardest time in my life for my wrists because they would hurt so much from writing so much. And I do not recommend that. In fact, my grades kind of like dropped because I used to waste so much time on summaries. And sometimes I will take like a mixture of both, which honestly depends on the class. Sometimes there's no way around mixing both of them. I personally don't like that because I like to be consistent, but gotta be time efficient, so I am willing to do everything. Now that concludes my summaries. So for tutorials, I don't know if this is just a thing that is in my university, but I know abroad there's also like things like TA sessions or Q&A sessions, whatever. I like to go to them after I finish my summary so I can go back and revise my summary, and then I already know which topic I kind of want to pay more attention to. But sometimes there's no way around it. Sometimes I don't understand the topic at all, and then I'll just go to the tutorial, and then after the tutorial I will finish my summary. That really depends on the lecture and the topic and the chapter that we're discussing in the class. I guess you don't really have to do that revising your summary because, as I mentioned before, most of the time if you do already have good study materials given to you, there's already everything inside the materials that are given to you. If there's one thing you can take away from this video is that note-taking is not everything. It is far more important to understand the topic, and I know this is the thing that people are struggling with the most. I feel like a lot of people are struggling with understanding their topic, so that's why they take a lot of notes, so in order to make them feel like they at least did something. And I'm not gonna say I'm not guilty of that as well sometimes. Again, note-taking is not something you have to do. If you have like a good memory, which I don't, that's why I do all of these things. Note-taking is for remembering the stuff. You're not gonna learn from your summaries. But of course, sometimes if the topic is very easy, you can summarize and learn in one step, but summarizing by itself is not gonna give you any new knowledge. But anyway, we're at the end of my video. I hope that it was kind of helpful. I feel like I rambled a lot of self-explanatory things. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, I would appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. I'm very grateful for every like and comment and subscription, of course, but you don't have to. Thank you guys so much for watching. I see you in my next video. Bye. See you soon.